Right, I'll hit record. All right, we're recording.
Hmm.
All right, so this is episode 10 of the Coaches Roundtable. Funnily enough, I'm actually sat on a round table right now. We have a round table in our flat, and Em's looking at me like, oh my God. Starting with the dad jokes. Should we just crack on? Get straight into question one. Okay, so I'm going to leave this one probably till last. I don't know how many we can get through. I reckon maybe if we do 3, because they're quite big ones. So we'll start with a light-hearted one. So this one's submitted by Sarah. And it was, if you could do a competition based on 3 lifts, what would they be and why?
Damn. Okay. Squat
Okay,
bench.
you can go first.
I don't know. I need time.
Any 3 lifts. So it could be like dumbbell bench press or something like that.
Just leg press machine.
Leg press.
No, I don't know. Just throw out snatch and clean and jerk. They're not part of the list. Not anymore.
You've got to choose 3.
I'll choose 3. Snatch, clean and jerk, and clean and press.
Really?
No. I don't know. I did probably. I don't know. What would you choose?
One that comes straight to mind would probably be a back squat.
Yeah, that is a classic.
Or a front squat, some kind of squat. I'd probably favour a front squat just because it limits the amount of people that can do it. Yeah, so it would be a front squat, and this is not in order. I'll say all my 3, and then so front squat would be first, or my first choice. Probably just because obviously specific to weightlifting, everyone can back squat. You know, front squat requires a little bit more mobility, so there's a bit more skill involved rather than just raw strength. And then I reckon I'm going to go with my 2 favorite lifts. It would be a block clean, a high block clean, a high block clean, and a hang snatch. Just because they're my 2 favorite variations.
Yeah, and anything that skips most of the movement is good.
Basically, anything from the floor, no. Anything from the blocks or a hang, yes. I reckon. So what I'd do, it would be hang snatch first, then block clean, and then front squat.
What is this competition? We're not doing these when we open.
Why not? It's a competition.
Nobody's going to want to sign up for it.
That's fine. It would just be me.
That's just you.
We'll call it the Connor Classic.
The Campbell Classic.
The Campbell Classic.
You got like a little trophy and everything.
Yeah, those would be my 3 lifts.
Gotcha.
Being serious though, if it were to be an actual competition, it would be snatch, clean, I hate jerks, and back squat. Done.
I would do the snatch, clean, and the jerk, but separate them.
Nice. That would be quite fun, actually. I think. Can
you imagine like fresh or freshish? How
freshish
much would be jerking? Quite impressive.
I mean, yes, but also you've just maxed out on snatch and clean. Your legs are probably going to be pretty fatigued.
Jerks first.
Jerks first. Jerks first. That would be mad. All right. So you're going with snatch, clean, and jerk. Snatch, clean, jerk. I'm going with snatch, clean, back squat.
Yeah. To be fair, snatch, clean, and jerk back squat. I feel like if I was trying to maximize my ability to win something, I'd throw back squats in there.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
Preferably for like 5 reps or something.
5s, yeah. All right. Okay, next one. What age should kids start weightlifting? This was submitted by Mark. That's a good question.
I think, what age do kids start doing gymnastics?
Well, since I can walk, really, isn't it? It's like 3,
So
4, maybe.
how young kids should be doing weightlifting. Yeah,
What's that?
that's how young kids should be doing weightlifting.
All
Why?
right. So now I want you to expand on that point a little bit more. I see where you're going, and I would agree with you,
Yeah.
but we
Why-
can't just.
Yeah.
This would be a pretty boring round table if we just went 4 years old.
Yeah. There you go. That's all
That's
you
it.
get.
No opinion on that. Just 4 years old.
I feel like, I mean, obviously you get quite substantial forces in weightlifting applied to you, but like, isn't it the same in gymnastics as well? Like some of the movements there. I mean, firstly, your risk of injury is way higher. Let's be honest.
Mm.
And I don't know anything about gymnastics, only that it looks very difficult and also quite a bit of fun. But yeah, your risk of injury is really, really high. The forces that you're going to be enacting on yourself and the strength that you require is also really, really high. There's not, I don't see why if it's fine for a child to start that really, really early, why is weightlifting any different?
Yeah, I think I mean, I know a few gymnasts who have gone through kind of youth level to now close to senior level, and upon speaking from them, a lot of the gymnastics that they do in the first couple of years is more just like roly polies, tumbles, like handstand holds. It's like simple things, so like more for fun rather than actually think about doing it for a competition or to win medals or whatever. And I think it should be very similar in weightlifting, that because it is generally it's less of a skill-based sport than, say, maybe football or rugby might be.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, the inherent safety and danger of having a child pick up a barbell, it's a little bit easier to teach someone how to kick a football when they're young because there's less risk than it is to just give a child a barbell and go, right, start lifting.
Like, is there less risk? Because, you get like, football at times becomes almost a contact sport. And, you get people having some quite major injuries. I've not really seen any major injuries from weightlifting, or at least not to the same degree as other sports. Yes, you definitely do get them, but usually very, very high level or when people are fucking about.
Yeah. I would definitely say that on that point, it comes down to the coach that is handling that athlete, because it's not like you're going to get a child that comes in and give them a barbell and go, oh, they can snatch, let's put more weight on the bar.
Yeah.
It's good. The process, let's say you take a 20-year-old athlete and a 5-year-old kid, the process is going to be so much more drawn out for that child's development than it is for a 20-year-old male who potentially might already have developed a lot of muscle mass, a lot of good coordination. There's obviously less risk involved. And when I say risk, I mean that child might not know how to move properly yet. So although they're at different stages of their development, it's different in terms of like their progression.
The case with British weightlifting that I don't know what age range it applies to, but they kind of grade performances based on like technical points rather than the amount of weight, which I think for kids that's what you should be looking for.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, they're a kid. Like, don't give them a really, really heavy barbell, but technique is going to be carried forward anyway.
Yeah. I would also say, taking weightlifting aside, so not just looking at snatch and clean and jerk specifically, but talking things like a little bit more GPP, so squats, pulls, presses, planks, lunges, like stuff like that, that's actually going to help them develop as a weightlifter. The more specific it gets into their career, for example, if they actually decide to pursue that after 10 however many years. But I'd definitely say, on your point, it's a really good time to be able to develop a kid in just moving well.
Get them fucking, also moving well.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of like summarize, I mean, it's hard to put a date on it, isn't it? Like, what age should kids start weightlifting? I'd say there comes a point where, like, if you're a 1 or 2 year old, what are you going to gain from that? You know,
Start dribbling on the barbell.
yeah. Generally, I mean, it would be difficult to say because kids mature at different ages, so it will depend on that child. You know, for females, they generally tend to develop a lot quicker than males do in terms of peak height velocity. But then once they've reached that point, they kind of mellow off. Whereas men tend to sort of, it takes them a little bit longer to develop. So I'd say on a case to case basis, it's probably a little bit more important to look at, where just because you have a group of 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds doesn't mean that they're all going to develop. And actually, it's the same in most people anyway. Even if you've got a group of 20-year-olds, if you give them all the same program, that not all of them are going to develop at exactly the same rate. And it's the same with children, because you know, they might have had different genetics from their mum and dad. You know, they might move differently. I don't know, could be anything, couldn't it? A whole host of things. Generally though, I'd say anything 4 and up, to be honest. 4 is probably pushing it a little bit, depending on what you're doing with that child.
So if they're walking, they can snatch. That's fine.
if they can squat, they can snatch. But yeah, generally I'd say maybe I'm going to go with 5+. I think 4 is probably pushing it, to be honest. But again, case to case basis, and it's not like in that first session you're going to get them doing a squat, an overhead squat or a snatch. You're going to get them doing, you know, basic squats, lunges, pushes, presses, pulls. You know, learning how to brace properly so that you can set that child up in the future, so their foundation is set. It's you know, it's solid. And then as they mature and as they develop and as they get stronger and better and they're moving better, and then we can start to, you know, develop them into a little bit more specifics for weightlifting. That's probably a very long-winded answer, but yeah. Okay, this question, there's a good question though, actually, I think. So this question is from M. So the first one is, should your feet be in contact with the floor when you triple extend? Or does this differ from person to person?
Interesting question. I think as part of the triple extension, it's a question of timing, because obviously your feet will leave the floor.
Yep.
So that's usually after the triple extension has finished. Like you almost, it's like, you know, you've got a number line and you've got 0. Is 0 positive or is it negative? It's not, it's both, it's in between. And your kind of feet leaving the floor is almost sort of in between. But I'd argue that, like, it's part of the extension mostly. And then turnover is when you pick your feet up. You will see that some people kind of leave their, like, if I think, is it Toshiki? Like, he leaves his feet on the ground for a long period of time. And that's actually after he's initiated the turnover, and, you know, the turnover has actually begun, then he picks his feet up, not at the same time that the turnover begins. So there is a little bit of individual, but Fernando Reis from Brazil as well, he's a really, really good example. I think he's got criminally underrated pull, because, like, his feet are just in contact just for as long as they can. And you'll see in the slow-mo that it's not his feet moving, it's his legs pulling the feet away, which is really bizarre, but, like, you know, clearly works for him really well. And so I'd say, like, generally they should be, it's not going to be like a heavy contact, it's not like a pull, but they are going to be in contact with the floor to some degree during the extension. And once the extension's finished, that's when they will leave the floor to reposition.
Okay, so then if I put a spin off on that question, what happens if your feet don't leave the floor? I.e., for example, you extend and you do a no foot lift, because there are some people who don't move their feet whatsoever. And what I'm talking about is extend, you come on the balls of your feet, you go straight back down without them sliding, without them picking up and coming onto the ground. Because
there will still be a point, like, you know, it's the question whether it's that heavy contact or that light contact. Like even in a no foot snatch or clean, the feet will not move, but the actual pressure that's exerted through that foot will go to zero right at the point at which the turnover is initiated. So even though it's still like on the ground, there's currently nothing going through it. And I think just to preface as well is that like some people will not obviously move their feet. Generally, even if you don't move your feet, so you don't have a wider receiving stance, you should still bring your feet up off the ground and replace them, even if you replace them in the same position. If you're moving laterally or like front back, that kind of thing, you need to be able to move with the bar. So just keeping them, I mean, you know, keeping them dead and not moving them at all will obviously be great. If you can do that 100% of the time, like completely precisely, but you know, you're only human. It's just likely that like, you know, anything else, it will come and bite you if you can't reposition your feet. So yeah, I think, it's just it's less about them being in contact or that, you know, the pressure going through them, the degree of pressure, but like generally it will hit zero at a point before the person starts pulling under, because you can't, if you're pulling under and you're exerting pressure, you're slowing down your turnover.
Because if you're putting force into the floor, how do you expect to move down? It doesn't work like that.
Going down your turnover.
I mean, I would agree with you, is that as soon as your feet leave the floor, you stop exerting force. It's impossible.
Can't.
Because the only way that you can produce energy is through the ground. You can't produce energy in floating. It's impossible unless you have superpowers, which, you know. So then my question, just I want to expand on that a little bit, just because I thought is a really interesting question, is the difference between moving the feet actively, i.e. picking them up and putting them on the floor, to allowing them to come up and just slide into place laterally. So for example, like Lasher would be a good example. He picks his feet up and puts them back on the floor. But then, for example, someone like Lu Xiaojun or Li Dayin, it would pick up, slide, and that is very much kind of a Chinese technique, right? What would you say, I guess, the major difference for those would be?
I think people misunderstand the whole, you know, the kind of picking up and placing it down or sliding it, because they think that picking it up and placing it down is like an active thing. You have to force. Whereas sliding, it just kind of happens naturally. No. The sliding is active as well. I was speaking to another person that we train with, who, you know, has trained in China before, and, you know, has actually had some, you know, quite in-depth conversations with the Chinese team. And like, slide is not the right word. It's more for slice. And so, like, it's still an active thing, even though it looks really gentle. Is, you know, you're still actively moving your feet out. Is one better than the other? No. I think, you know, you get people like, you know, if you look at the North Korean lifters, a lot of them will slide the feet out until you look at Yo Chol, I think. And, you know, he's got the biggest donkey kick of anyone. And, but, you know, it works for him. So I think it's like, but you should try both techniques and you should see what kind of works for you. As an individual. Ultimately, the difference is more the degree of lift, like between your feet and the floor. You're still replacing your feet. Even kind of with the Chinese, you know, that kind of very, very, very gentle sliding the feet out, that kind of thing. Like you're still trying to land perfectly balanced. So like you'll get the Russians, you know, with pick the feet up and replace it, and they want you to land kind of midfoot, more or less. It's the same with the Chinese kind of way of teaching, although they emphasize more the kind of balls of the feet. You're still trying to land there, you know, you're still trying to land balance rather than land on your toes and roll back. So you know, this is just what I've learned, so I could be completely wrong here. But
but it's also based on opinion, isn't it, or what we've observed? Because I would say a very similar thing is that for most people, when we come to extend, the weight is in the midfoot, balls of the foot, And then when you come to land, it's again in the same place, because that's where the pressure wants to be. That's where the force is. If it's too far back, then we're going to be shifting our weight too far back. We don't want that. We want to move up vertically and down vertically, because it is the quickest way to stand up and come down. Again, the point on Omyeong Chol as well is obviously a lot of the Koreans will pick and slice. Omyeong Chol will pick up and place, right? Do you also think that could potentially be due to his height? Because if you think about it, he has less distance to travel with the bar, so he might potentially be able to actually pick his feet up and then place them, because basically the bar doesn't have to move as high, does it? Because he's quite a short man.
It's true. I don't know. Just trying to think. Oh, but then I would argue that it's all relative. Like, just because the bar itself is bigger, like your movement relative to your height is still going to be the same.
Yep.
Like.
So I'm just playing devil's advocate. I just wanted to see if you thought that it would be, you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily think that like height would necessarily have an impact on what way moving your feet is optimal.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, it's like we understand that like kind of longer limbed athletes, especially if you've got long legs and short torso, you tend to have more issues in the catch, in the receive, because like basically once you've actually got under the bar, you've got far further to actually travel with it generally.
Yeah.
So in relation to your height. So I don't know. I mean, it's clearly a factor there, but would it be a factor with moving the feet? I don't know. I wouldn't have thought so, but I could be wrong.
All right. So one more question on that then, just to quickly expand again. So if the issue is you are coming into your extension, right, and your feet aren't active, where they just come up and you allow them to slide forward.
Right. So they're just kind of going on their own volition, really.
Yeah. So rather than you actually thinking about pushing and actively moving them, first question is, how could you drill that? Second question is, why is that issue happening?
I think if Ian's listening, he's going to kill me for this. just trying to make your footwork consistent. And it's like, you know, we all talk about positioning in terms of like, oh, you know, shoulders over the bar and like, you know, from an actual kind of 3D perspective, but nobody gives a shit where you move your feet, at least not in this country. So it's like, you know, there's one of the kind of classic drills for it is like having the little plates on the side where you actually have to pick your feet up and pop them back down on the plates. And that's almost like a kind of targeting thing, which works, you know, fairly well, and also gets you into the habit of moving them to the same. I just, you know, just draw your boxes in, you know, and you'll be able to see if one foot, like I have an issue where my right foot tends to lead a little bit more than my left foot. My left foot likes to stay where it you know, starts from. And so like that's kind of helped me become a little bit more kind of balanced between the two, instead of catching my snatches in the jerk receive position. And, you know, but I think, you know, kind of being aware of it, if you can take videos from the front as well, that's always useful. So kind of like varying the angles of the videos that you're taking of yourself. Slowing it down, seeing if your feet move asymmetrically to each other. I'm trying to think what else really. It kind of depends on the individual, like what's actually going on.
Yeah, so that was the second part of the question was, why could that potentially be happening?
Yeah.
So for example, if you extend a lot, really, really hard, but you don't think about pressing into the floor, generally the feet are just going to kind of like just do their own thing, right? Just shuffle forwards. And what I think one of the difficulties is actually trying to get someone to actively think about push and then land.
Yeah.
It is a skill to learn, and it's difficult to try and make that happen when you've got so many other things going on in a snatch.
Yeah.
Where like you said, it can be an issue, but there's more things that are, I'd say, more important than that. But yeah, for me, it comes down to balance and pressure.
Yeah, yeah, kind of like pushing. There's, you know, exercises, thinking stuff like, you know, snatch balances, um, you know, just purely just doing split jerks from blocks or from the rack, like kind of anything that sort of isolates the foot movement can help you to become a little bit more aggressive with it.
Yeah.
But obviously, you know, that's only as useful as your ability to actually, like, you know, you can have a really, really good snatch balance, and then the moment you start actually snatching,
Precisely.
it can just go
It
to
goes to
hell.
pot. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah.
doing complexes and kind of getting them in together
Yeah.
can be useful as well. And, you know, again, not corona, ties in with the kind of taking videos and such. You know,
Yeah.
if you've got like a snatch balance, snatch complex, for example, and you can actually see from the video, oh, my feet are incorrect in the snatch,
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, that kind of thing. You can use that as a comparison kind of going forward. So, yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Um, here's this one is from Izzy. Where do you draw the line between powering through and taking a sick day? So, for example, where do you draw the line between just going and doing a session, or just saying, I think I could probably have like do with a rest day, I'll come back to it tomorrow?
Is this session going to benefit me or disadvantage me?
Yeah. I mean, it's a singular session.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. It's like, you know, to take emotion out of the equation. I don't give a shit whether you want to train or you don't or whatever,
Yeah.
right? If going to the session is going to make a difference to your numbers, is going to improve, great. Okay, probably do go. But if it's, you know, if it's not, if because you're feeling really, really ill, you know that you're not going to be able to lift as much as you usually would, or you might have to take like more time in between, or like, you know, that like it's going to be like a kind of a bigger mental effort to go and might put you in a bad mood in the lead up or the lead down, then, you know, just weigh it up, your advantages versus your disadvantages. Sometimes, you know, and also just figure out what you can do. Okay, fine, I'm not going to train today, but, you know, I can go and I can watch some sessions from, you know, the Olympics, or I can go and read a book on weightlifting, or this, that, and the other. And so
Yeah.
it's like, it's more, you know, and then, but that's exactly what it is. It's like a kind of cost benefit analysis.
Mm-hmm.
If it's going to cost you more than it benefits you, don't do it. Like, and but sometimes, you know, emotions will get in the way of that, and just disregard how you're thinking for a moment. And if you're not sure, ask someone else.
Yeah. Well, that was the point I was going to make, was that's the reason you have a team and a coach is,
Yeah.
yes, you might not want to go and lift, but you might come into the gym. And if, let's say, for example, you were thinking emotionally, like, I'm tired today, like, I don't know if I can do this session, your coach will know. Like then they can see that they're not, they don't, a coach doesn't just give you a session and go do this. Right. There's steps to go that they go through. And to be honest, at the end of the day, like you said, it's a singular session.
Yeah.
Is it in the grand scheme of things going to make that much difference?
Yeah.
Probably not. Probably
No.
not.
As an
But
individual session, no. It's more like if you get into the habit of just like, oh, I kind of feel a bit shit, so I'm going to skip it. Like, things will start to add up.
we'll see.
And
That's different.
yeah,
Yeah.
What?
I would say that's entirely different, because it's not that becomes more of a habit rather than, you know, like you actually need to reassess, I'm doing too much. And at that point your coach needs to say, yeah, you probably are. What other external stresses do you have outside of the gym that are contributing to this stress? If you can't get rid of those, you need to readjust the program so that you are actually able to do the sessions. On the flip side, sometimes coming in, even though you don't want to do that session, it doesn't mean you have to do that session. You can do something else. You know, you can just move the barbell, or like you said, if you have a team or a coach or a gym that you go to, just go and watch. Be part of the environment, be part of the culture. You don't have to lift. And you might find that actually, you know, yes, you might have been feeling shit 30 minutes before, but watching people and being in that environment and maybe just speaking to the coach and going, hey, I just want to do some like barbell stuff, is that okay? You might actually find that actually it goes okay. I would also say that sometimes those sessions where you do feel really bad are part of the challenge of weightlifting.
Yeah,
It's not easy. And I'd say that 70% of the time, the sessions that you do aren't easy.
yeah,
It's the truth. They're still fun and you're still getting somewhere, but it's not easy,
yeah.
because it's not just sitting on the couch and playing PS4 or PS5. You're
But
actually trying to better yourself every
yeah,
single session. So what do you expect?
we should, what's the word that I'm looking for? Basically make the distinction between, kind of physical illness, or not mental illness, but when you're just having a shit day, you're in a bad mood,
Yeah.
So like physical illness, by and large, stay at home. Nobody wants your cough, especially not now. Like, also like physically, you're not going to be able to move nearly as well as you usually would. So like already you're kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage. So it's like, be courteous to other people, your teammates, the people in the gym. But also, just understand that, like, look, if you've got a stomach bug and you spent last night throwing up, don't go to the gym.
Yeah, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Nobody wants that. But also, like, you're drained. You're physically drained. You haven't been eating properly. You've not got the energy to go.
Yeah.
Don't do it. There are certain days when you're having, like, a kind of bad day. You're a bit under the weather. You're a bit mopey, where it is beneficial to just go. Just get up. Just go. Just turn up. If you turn up there and you realize, oh, I don't really want to do it, fine, go. But at least you kind of made the effort. The intention was there.
Precisely, yeah.
And like,
because that in itself is a challenge. Is you've emotionally challenged yourself to step up and go, you know what? Yeah, I do feel like this, but guess what? I'm going to try it anyway.
Yeah. That's
and I think
it becomes less about the individual session and building strength and technique, more about building like mental resilience.
Yeah, precisely.
That day, you're going to move like shit, and everything's going to go poorly. Good, rock up anyway.
Yeah.
It's not going to hurt you, but you're going to be a little bit more mentally tough for having done it. And honestly, sometimes you turn up there and you've got a training buddy or two.
Yep.
And it just puts you right into the correct frame of mind. So don't, just because you think, and also just because you think a session is going to go badly, it's not always the case. I've gone to the gym sometimes, just terrible mood, and ended up lifting really, really. And sometimes the inverse is true as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You could wake up and had 10 hours sleep, a really good breakfast, and your session's been really crap. I've honestly had sessions where I've woken up, I've had an energy drink and a Pop-Tart, and I'm good to go on 4 hours sleep. Like sometimes science can't explain how you're feeling. It's what it is.
Yeah.
But generally, that's not good advice. Don't sleep 4 hours, eat a Pop-Tart and drink an energy drink, because that's not conducive to a long-term training plan.
Speak for yourself.
Speak for yourself. All right. I reckon one more. So again, this is from M, and this is a good topic. I like, and I think it will probably come down to it depends again. So should your arms be actively guiding the bar, or should they be relaxed the whole way through the lift? Bombshell.
They should just be like jelly snakes.
Noodle.
No. I think this is one of the mistakes that I think, like, when I was sort of, from a lot of British weightlifting, they're like, your arms are chains. They don't do anything. They just hang by your sides until the extension is finished, and then you kind of pull under. And like, no. I mean,
yes, but no.
Yes, but no. Like, firstly, don't try and lift it up with your arms. It's not a.
Well, yeah, it's not a tug.
It's there's a little bit more finesse. But the arms everything is active in weightlifting. Like, even just like keeping a good grip on the bar, you're using all of your forearm. Like, pushing the bar back into you to keep it close is going to be using your lats, and is arguably going to be like using some of your arm as well. And so it's more about keeping kind of tension, not overly tense, but enough, and but But also, like, you know, some people benefit from, you know, just having like really loose arms. They can do that. Some people, in order to get into, you know, get the bar into the correct position at the top of the thighs or in the hip, will need a little bit of arm bend. So your arms
proportions.
can't be jelly snakes if you need arm bend to get it into the correct position.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think, you know, again, it depends. But like, don't think of it, you know, don't be lazy with them.
Yeah.
Still something happening. You're still pushing it
Yeah.
back into you. You're still keeping it in contact with your legs. You're still keeping a firm grip on the bar. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what else.
I would say that I definitely agree. I'm not going to add too much to that. I would say the arms, I know this is a little bit more contentious, but I would say the arms are a little bit less relevant in the clean than they would be in the snatch. And the only reason I say that is because the distance that it has to travel is slightly less. I'm not saying that they're not active. I'm just saying that they might not do as much as they would in a snatch. But again, like you mentioned, it comes down to proportions and it comes down to individual differences. You might have someone who is really strong in their legs, but they always let the bar drift away, even if they're extending really vertically, and the bar still drifts away because they still don't have tension in their upper body and their arms. How are you going to fix that? You have to use your arms to keep it closer and finish. Like, how do you expect to do a lift if your arms aren't being used in a snatch? Where's the bar? It's fixated over your head. So you're saying that you're not going to use your arms in a snatch?
I think this is it, because the arms don't move. People like don't use them. But then arguably the torso doesn't move. We're not like, you know, going all over the shop, are we?
No.
So it's like, do you not use your torso? Of course you do. You're trying to maintain tension through it.
Yeah, so it's isometric, isn't it?
Yeah.
Your torso is isometrically contracted. Generally, your arms are going to be right all the way through the pull until you extend, and then you're going to move underneath. Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say when the arms bend, the power ends, and I don't think that's true at all. There's so many different ways that somebody's arm could bend. I've seen, like Lasher. You know, I know that we're not all Lasher. You know, we're not all snatching 222 kilos. His arms are bent straight the way off the floor.
Yeah.
So he is using his arms. He has to be. If his arms are bent, he's going to be using his arms.
Yeah. He's getting it into the correct position.
Precisely. And it works well for him. Have you seen the size of him? He's a bloody giant. You know, and I'm not saying that everyone should lift like Lasher, but everyone has a technical model that they are biased towards. But then they're going to have to adjust that athlete to athlete to make sure that actually the individual differences are accounted for, because you can't just go, right, I've got 30 athletes in this club and they're all going to fit into that one technical model. It doesn't work like that. That's not how weightlifting is. Ideally, if you were in a Chinese system or a Russian system or a system in a country where you were, you know, coached from a very, very young age and you have the perfect proportions and you were brought up into that system, fine. But the difference is that in countries like the USA, in the UK, in some European countries, some people don't start lifting until they're 23, 24. And you're expecting to shove them into the technical model that, say, British weightlifting have given us. Don't get me wrong, having a technical model is the ideal because you know what you need to look for. But individual differences will trump that technical model, I believe.
Yeah, I think, like, but even, you know, with the Russian system, the Chinese system, it's still, I think, across the board, and obviously, you know, we're talking about weightlifting, but I think it applies to, like, it's more generally applicable too. And like, everyone has their own, you know, kind of characteristics and strengths and weaknesses, that kind of thing. And anything, in order to get the most out of it, you have to tailor it to the individual. You know, if I use, like, you know, just within the context of lifting, I use my back squat, for example. I got really long femurs, like, but I have a super, super narrow back squat, like, stance. And, you know, I don't push my knees out. They kind of just go forward. Like, you know, you'd look at that and say, like, that's, you know, that can be optimized, surely. Put the feet out, flare the toes out a little bit more, keep the knees out rather than in. That's not what gets me to lift the most. That's how you're built, you know? And so it's, even though something is not necessarily textbook, it can still work for that lifter better than any other, you know, method. So I think, you know, with all things, it's adapting it to the individual.
Mm-hmm.
But the only way you can adapt it is actually by finding out what works for that person. And that's trial and error.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the point, I do think the arms are active in guiding the bar, but I don't think they shouldn't overtake other areas of the body, i.e. keeping the back tight, using the legs. It is a leg driven movement. It's not an arm driven movement. Yes, the people might argue that you might not use the arms, or you might use the arms to guide the bar, or you actively want to pull. It's just like, it's minutia, isn't it? Like it's just arguing a point because you don't have anything else to argue about. Like,
that's a general rule. You shouldn't be using your arms to pick up the bar. Generally.
No.
Yeah. Let's just, you know, get that point out there. You know, you'd be surprised. Lots of people like to. But the legs are the prime movers, and then, you know, with the hips at the top.
Yeah.
But the arms facilitate the rest of the movement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're kind of like keeping the bar into the correct position. Like that's it. That's what they do. And you know, one thing as well, that keeping too rigid, you know, with the arms can actually slow down your turnover. So that's something to kind of bear in mind. Sometimes when you're too tense, it can stop you from actually, you know, pulling
under. Yeah.
So, you know,
absolutely. So basically, it depends. But one thing that we can both agree on is that everything is all in the legs.
Yes. You know, use them.
Yeah, you have legs. Yeah, exactly. I think that's it. So that was a quick one.
Yeah.
Well, I say quick. Good 45 minutes.
Okay.
Cool. I reckon we'll stop there then.
All right.
Sound good?
Sound good.
Unless you've got anything off the top of your head that you want to chuck in the mix.
Can't think so.
Awesome. All right, we'll save it for next week then.
Sounds good.
All right, thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll catch you next week on another episode of the Coaches Roundtable. Peace.
Cheers, guys. See you then.